We are with actress and spokesperson for the National Organization of Rare Disorders, Patricia Richardson, is here, and we started talking about this at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
But can we just, for 1 second, humor me, and just because back in the day,
I
would come to the set and hang out with you guys and laugh so
hard. It was so fun. It was such a fun set, didn't you think?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Those are my memories, though. What are yours?
Yeah, well, you know, it was so funny because they asked me before, you know, what, it's so funny that memories that I do have. I was telling somebody before that I have a memory of before all the shows. It's so weird that a fond memory for me would be being nervous, but before all the shows, Tim and I were always really nervous, and we would pace back and forth before every show and just be nervous together, and the kids would be back there and we'd all be back there because you have to do a curtain call before you go out, and I just remember that there's something about the bonding that you have with everybody waiting, and you're thinking, oh, is this episode going to work, and is this thing that we changed at the last minute, and yeah, and even though unlike doing stage, you can go out and if you have to start over, the audience loves it, and you know you have that luxury of being able to make a mistake. You still feel nervous, but it makes no sense. But you do.
That audience brings such great energy, though.
It does, and I think it's just the energy of having an audience.
Yeah.
It always, even all 8 years, you're still nervous.
Well, when you're nervous before you go out, but once you get out there, did you
still nervous?
You're still nervous.
Still nervous.
Well, it didn't show.
But you know, I think that's part of the energy of why, because we always did a taping in the afternoon, and why they always use the nighttime performance, because the nighttime performance just have this lift because the audience is there, and there's, you know, you have more energy.
Yeah.
But you took after the show, you took a little break.
I did. I needed to be with my kids. I had my twins 3 months. I was nursing them when I did the pilot, and I was able to have the twins in the dressing room for the first 3 years, but then they went to nursery school, and we're shooting in Burbank. I live in Santa Monica. We had long days, 5-day weeks through the whole 8 years. And I was away from my older son, and I really missed them, and I felt, you know, I just really felt that I needed to be home. Unlike a lot of other people, I didn't really work in the summers. I didn't do a lot of, I just wanted to be home. So I just really felt it was important that I not miss this time with them. So I took off. I worked a little bit, but not very much, a couple of years before I did Strong Medicine, which I did largely because it was already running. It was Lifetime, so it was sort of under the radar. It was an ensemble show, and they gave me a 4-day week. So I knew that I wouldn't have to be away from
By the way, you said something, I just want to be home. By the way, that isn't just. That is a big task to have when you have little ones to look after. I know how that feels.
Yeah,
so.
And also by then I was kind of a single mom because I got divorced halfway through Home Improvement, and I had them, you know, 4 days a week, and I'm a single mom doing that, and you know, I never had live-in help the whole time. Yeah. So it was important for me to be the. I just, you know, if you have somebody living in, then you're taking care of them, too. You know, you got another person. It's like, oh, I got another kid, and you got their problems. So, you know, you got a person that's in between them, because you fall into, will you go take them and do this? If you've got somebody there, you're going to do that. So I didn't have help on weekends, and I didn't have somebody living there. So, you know, I wanted to be the person, the primary person.
Yeah.
Well, during that time, though, when all this went on, then your father became ill.
All during that time. I had 10 years of my parents being ill on the East Coast. So, you know, I always say to my daughter and to my future daughter-in-law, my oldest son is getting married in April. I mean, they probably don't want to hear this, but, you know, don't make the mistake I did. You know, have your children younger. You don't want to hit menopause and have teenagers and dying parents all at the same time.
Wow.
Which is what happened to me. And that's, you know, when you're in menopause, you kind of want to kill everybody anyway. And then when you have teenagers, you kind of want to lock them in a room and get them out later. And, you know, and so it's not a good combination. And then, you know, my parents were ill for a very long time. And it was, you know, my mom falling apart, and then my dad with this disease.
What was the disease your dad had?
Well, this PSP thing, we didn't know what was wrong with him. He was very athletic. We had, you know, a lot of replacements and surgeries, and we thought initially that it was all of that. This is my dad. My dad was one of those right stuff aviators. He was Naval Academy, and then a fighter pilot, and then a test pilot for several years, and you know, went to Princeton aeronautical engineering thing. And then when my last sister was born, his father, who'd been an admiral in the Navy, came to him and said, you know, this is a lot of fun for you, but it's 4 daughters. Who's going to take care of them if something happens to you? So he got out. He went into the like aeronautical industry, and we still moved every 2 years because he started advancing. Eventually, he was running corporations. So that was what was really disturbing about watching this man who was, by the way, very controlling, but was so always had all the answers, become a person who eventually couldn't talk, couldn't move. We had no idea what was going on with him because he had that Parkinsonian mask where their faces don't move, they can't move their eyes, and you can't even tell what they're thinking or feeling because they can't communicate. This went on for the last 2 years of his disease.
What were you thinking and feeling at that time? Because evidently your dad was very, very strong and really kept the family together.
We all depended on him to have all the answers, and now he couldn't.
So what did that do to you? Because it must have been frightening for you.
It was horrible.
Yeah.
And by that point, my mom had gone, and we did what, there's a magazine I want to recommend called Today's Caregiver Magazine, which is terrific for people. And Gary Bark, who does that magazine, calls it the professionalization of caregiving. My sisters and I worked out a deal where we in tandem went to go take care of him, and one of us would go, and then the next one, and the next one, so that there was somebody always there. And if you go to my article, there's an article I wrote in there. You can find out a lot about what I say about caregiving somebody from a distance, and that's a whole other conversation we won't have today. There's no time.
Well,
but I want to talk a little bit about. I'm really here to talk about NORD, because National Organization of Rare Diseases helped our patient advocacy organization that I got involved with a lot. And NORD, there are 30 million Americans living with rare diseases like my dad. When we went through this, we thought, oh my God, we're the only people dealing with this disease. It's so rare. And then I learned through NORD that there are 30 million Americans, 10 million Canadians, millions of people around the world with 7,000 rare diseases, 2/3 of which affect children. And to be a rare disease, it has to affect less than 200,000 people. So what our experience was not a rare experience. And we just didn't know that at the time. And so if you have a patient support group, which I was lucky enough to find eventually, and 200 or 300 of these diseases, only 200 or 300 of these diseases have patient support groups, NORD kind of helps with all those other people that don't. So you can go to National Organization of Rare Diseases site or the raredisease.org site and get help if you think you have symptoms that you're trying to find help, a support group or your doctor's trying to find somebody else, or they connect us to legislators and sometimes a big pharma. They're looking for people for clinical trials. They've been tremendous help for a lot of people.
Well, again, if you want more information on the National Organization of Rare Disorders, you can go to raredisease.org.